colleagues to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. It's an uphill battle. It might not even be cleared to get through the Homeland Security House Committee, let alone the full House. But I would imagine it would be dead on arrival in the Senate anyway. The president seems to like the guy and wants him to stay exactly where he is. So what is the point of this?
I think the point is to send a message to the administration on behalf of the American people. When I go home, I just came back from my district in Texas. They're tired of this, the policies, and quite frankly, the dereliction of duty and breach of public trust on the part of this one man who is the architect, I would say, of all the destruction and chaos and crisis that we're seeing at the border, where you've had 8 million encounters, 300 on the terror watch list, 200,000 Americans, most of them young people, dead now due to fentanyls. And they're just tired with this abdication.
So after he talked about revenge and had a little something to say about me, that's fine. We raised $1 million online right after he did that. Then the next day, Unhinged again says, for anybody that supports Nikki Haley, you will be barred from MAGA. So we had a little fun with that. We started selling T-shirts that said barred permanently. We sold 10,000 T-shirts. We raised another $1.6 million.
That are not being enforced. So why give him this in an election year, the cover of this deal that, critics say is still going to let a lot of people in, but he gets to take a victory lap that he's gotten something done.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not going to let a bunch of people in. It's focused on actually turning people around on it. It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year. We all have an oath to the Constitution, and we have a commitment to say we're going to do whatever we can to be able to secure the border.
A lot of people interpreted that to mean that you think Texas should defy the Supreme Court and stop federal agents from removing that razor wire. Do you think Texas should do that? Should they defy the Supreme Court?
Texas should stand their ground. They should enforce their state law and go back to the constitutional rights that they've been granted to protect their state sovereignty. And that's what so many of us as governors are offended by, is that Democrats were threatening to encourage the president to activate our guards in order to get them to stand down and not protect our state. So it is a dangerous situation. It is a war zone at our southern border. I'm so proud of what Texas has done, proud to stand with them. I've deployed my National Guard down there 3 separate times already, and we'll do what we can to help them support and defend their people.
I want to ask you about the accusation that you guys actually don't want to get a bill done. Washington Post says this: Democrats are offering something Republicans have wanted for years, but dear leader Trump says no, and suddenly GOP senators are afraid to say yes. How much of your objection is based primarily on the former president's objection to this bill that he hasn't seen either?
He's irrelevant to this conversation. He's not in office. All right. And by the way, I talked to President Trump. He's never asked me to be opposed something. But you know what? The American voters are in the same position Trump's in and the same position I'm in. We need to secure the border today. And the only way you can do that with a lawless administration is you have to make them do it. You have to tie it to something. And what I don't get is Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do that. It's the most important thing we want out of this bill. And by the way, we got to be very careful we don't codify Biden's open policies, and we don't.
That your candidate, former President Trump, was ordered by a jury to pay $83 million for defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. He was also found before, as you know, liable for sexual abuse. Does that give you any pause in your support?
myself and all the voters that support Donald Trump supports a return to normalcy as it relates to what affects their kitchen table. The average person in our country, Martha, they're not talking about lawsuits. As a matter of fact, what I have seen, however, is that the perception that the legal system is being weaponized against Donald Trump is actually increasing his poll numbers.
I understand that, but they were jury trials. They were jury trials. They started when Donald Trump was president. That gives you no pause whatsoever.
I don't have the Democrats don't pause when they think about Hunter Biden and the challenges that he brings to his father.